During the Resource Wars, the United States produced an unimaginable amount of weapons and ammunition of all types. So many, in fact, that more than 200 years after the bombs fell, they are still being used, and it's common to hear every few years about the discovery of entire warehouses abandoned for centuries with thousands of firearms forgotten in storage since the Great War. Regardless of them being melee weapons, firearms, or even artillery pieces, they are a necessary tool for the day-to-day life in the wasteland, and lacking one usually means the difference between life and death, which gives them an immense value. Merchants specialized in the trade of weapons can be found across North America, although the quality of their guns tends to vary due to different merchants having different standards. In most places, pristine pre-war guns can still be found, but weapons with 200 years of use and not possibly dangerous makeshift firearms made out of junk are the more commonly available options. This is not the case in the southwest of the old United States, thanks to the organization known as the Gun Runners that manufactures brand new firearms of a quality not seen since before the Great War. Around the year 2131, one of the many gangs of the Hub, a settlement in Southern California, decided to emigrate to the ruins of the city of Los Angeles, searching for a new territory to claim. Arriving at the city, they found and settled in an old abandoned factory that they named the Fortress, and proceeded to dug a moat around it, filling it with toxic waste afterwards to improve the defenses of the rather exposed building. At the beginning, they raided, extorted, they weren't that different from any other of the rest of the gangs that could be found in the ruins or any other part of the wasteland. Normally, besides any valuables, they took the weapons of their victims, and with time, they managed to accumulate a decently large arsenal. They decided to start selling these weapons to settlements and other gangs, which proved to be an extremely profitable business that gave them far more than they had ever gained by other means. The profits motivated them to become merchants and focus completely in buying and selling weapons. Looking to acquire more merchandise, they used their connections to create a trade route that saw them buy weapons from their contacts in the hub to later transport and resell in Los Angeles. Through this trade route, they eventually found themselves in the possession of various pre-war weapon schematics, and realizing the potential of the fortress, they began restoring the machinery inside it and to use the plentiful metal scrap in the surrounding areas in the process of manufacturing new weapons and ammunition, following the instructions in said schematics. Going from merchants to weaponsmiths, the capacity to make new weapons of excellent quality and reliability quickly gave them the reputation of the best weapon suppliers in the wasteland, making the name Gun Runners well known across California. For 20 years, the Gun Runners prospered, but slowly problems started to arise. First, the nearby sources of materials ran out, making them dependent on other settlements to supply everything necessary for weapons production. And after, they even lost the capacity of moving freely between settlements for supplies or materials and to receive customers at the fortress due to a pack of deathclaws making their nest nearby. The presence of these deathclaws also led to a group of opportunistic mercenaries taking control over their biggest supplier, the settlement of Aditum, after the inhabitants hired them as protection. These mercenaries began to extort with threats of cutting off the supply of materials unless they got weapons at a greatly discounted price. And with a nest of deathclaws next door that left them without alternative suppliers to continue production, the Gun Runners had to accept their demands. Without a steady flow of materials, without enough weapons being produced and sold, and with deathclaws making any trip, the Gun Runners' business seemed to be on its way out. Until all of these problems were solved thanks to the intervention of the Vault Dweller. He exterminated the deathclaws, allowing for safer travel around the ruins, and helped to broker a deal between a few different groups, including the Gun Runners, to expel the mercenaries out of Aditum by force, regaining a fair deal with their biggest supplier while also strengthening the ties between Aditum and the Gun Runners. The Vault Dweller brought a new stability that, for the Gun Runners, meant they could focus entirely on producing and selling weapons without any worries. The next few decades saw the gunrunners expand, enjoying a prosperity that only grew with the formation of the new California Republic. The NCR established its own army, and so needed weapons to equip every soldier. The gunrunners were a clear choice for the task. With time, they became the biggest and most important weapon supplier to the NCR's military, to the point they are sometimes jokingly referred to as an unofficial branch of the army. They gained an immense influence inside the Republic thanks to this, an immense influence only matched by the immense profits that allowed them to continue to expand and opened multiple new factories throughout the Wasteland. The business model the gunrunners adopted is based around sending a handful of specialists to any given region to establish a new facility, secure a supply source for materials, hire talented individuals, and produce and sell weapons. And while most of their competitors adopted a more rigid hierarchy similar to those of pre-war corporations, the gunrunners took a different path. Their headquarters in Los Angeles has a limited hierarchy out of bureaucratic necessity, but their factories across the Wasteland function in a very decentralized manner, without bosses or managers that would give orders to the employees. Each one understands their responsibilities and the role they play in keeping their factory afloat. The guards, weaponsmiths, everyone knows their job and how it contributes to the business. The factory located in the Mojave Desert is one of the most important ones for both the gunrunners and the NCR Army. Being just a few dozen kilometers away from the front lines of the war between the Republic and Caesar's Legion, they can produce, repair, and supply new weapons and ammunition relatively easily and quickly, an advantage they have over their competitors that have to bring most of their goods from the heart of California, putting more and more stress on the already stretched NCR supply lines in the process. And the success of the gunrunners is also the source of envy among the competition. The Van Graffs and Crimson Caravans would love to take over the weapons market so firmly controlled by the gunrunners, but their influence within the NCR is too great to take direct action in an attempt to force them out of business, like they have done in the past with smaller companies. And besides this influence, the gunrunners have a fearsome reputation of being extremely protective of their facilities, transport caravans, and production methods, responding to any perceived attack or infiltration with a level of violence only equal to the secretive and methodical nature of their retaliation.